stand before scores of white Americans, being sold as if they were animals and not the exact same species as the people buying them. One of the African Americans' worst nightmares. The auction block. After traders used many methods, some of which were very painful, to cover up the many scars on the backs of the slaves and to make them look happy, the slaves were considered suitable to sell. They were then bought by people just like them, who only thought that they had the right to control and hurt African Americans because they had happened to have been born white. Up on the auction block, the slaves were to be inspected by their potential buyers and new owners. The inspection wasn't easy, and the buyers definitely weren't gentle.
They examine you just like you do a horse. They look at your teeth and pull your eyelids back and look at your eyes and feel you just like you was a horse.
Unlike in the past, where they had the auction block, today we have maid agencies. Though they are similar in the way that you are looking for someone to help you with your work, they are completely different in other matters. In maid agencies, you do interview the person you are interested in hiring, like the Americans did at the auction block, but unlike how it was done in the past, questions are asked politely. When African Americans were sold, they weren't treated like humans. Now, though you are considered your maid's employer, you should still treat them as if they were your equals. Also, unlike the past, it is now against the law, as it always should have been, to physically abuse your domestic helpers. But sadly, slaves are not treated like helpers are today. The African Americans were not spoken to politely, and nobody was going to stop people from abusing them, because back then, it wasn't against the law, and the Southerners definitely didn't think it was wrong. Up on the auction block, slaves had their limbs pinched, not at all gently, to see how muscular they were, and they were forced to bend over to make sure there weren't any hidden wounds on their backs. They were made to run, jump, and do many other humiliating tricks so the slave owner could check for signs of lameness in them. Sometimes they were taken away from the auction block to a small house in a secluded area where they were made to remove their clothes for further inspection. To the whites, the inspection was merely a way of checking to see if their slaves were healthy and fit, as they needed strong slaves to keep their fields healthy so they could make money and live. But to the African Americans, it was degrading. The auction block was where the African Americans first began to lose their dignity. African Americans went through a lot of pain during slavery, but the physical pain wasn't what hurt them the most. It was the emotional pain that came from being separated from their families. When being taken away from Africa, they were separated from family and their home country. When they were going to be sold from one owner to another, they were separated from their friends and possibly their family. Rarely were they told when they were to be sold from their owners. Sometimes the owner referred to it as a walk, so the slave would leave without saying goodbye, never to see their family again. But sometimes mothers knew that their children were going to be sold. Mothers knew that whenever they gave birth to a baby, no matter how many they had, they wouldn't be able to keep even one. They would always be sold. So instead of watching their babies being sold away from them, the mothers would poison them, so their children would never have to be sold into the inhumane clutches of slavery. The auction block wasn't just one of the African Americans' worst nightmares. It was just the beginning of an even longer nightmare that went past the auction block and into their lives, which they never should have had to live. A life full of humiliation and suffering, both physical and emotional pain, and all things that African Americans never should have had to live through.